Welcome to 7 Days of English channel.
I'll be honest, I'm almost always late. If being late were an Olympic sport, I'd have a stack of gold medals and a Wheaties box with my face on it. My mom likes to joke that I was even born 2 weeks late. And I've been trying to catch up ever since. My name is Jack, and I've been putting the pro in procrastination for as long as I can remember. I never intend to be tardy, but somehow time just slips away from me. I'm the guy who hits snooze 3, okay 5, times every morning, the one sprinting out the door with a half-toasted bagel between my teeth. My friends have learned to trick me by telling me that dinner is at 6:30 p.m. when it's really at 7:00 p.m., just so I'll show up before the appetizers are gone. I've missed flights. I've shown up to parties as everyone is leaving with take-home cake. And let's not even talk about the number of times I've texted, "On my way," when I was actually still looking for my other shoe. Living life perpetually 10 minutes behind schedule isn't exactly fun. It's downright stressful. I'm always performing some kind of frantic calculus in my head, trying to figure out which task I can cram into an already packed day. Need to answer one more email before a meeting? Sure, I can squeeze it in. Whoops, that email turned into 3 emails, and now I'm late to the meeting. Story of my life. It's exhausting, it's embarrassing, and yet, for a long time, I just laughed it off and kept racing the clock each day. But one day, all that racing caught up with me. It turns out, you can only juggle so many running late mishaps before something gives. Let me tell you about the day my time management, or lack thereof, finally came to a head. The morning it all went wrong started like any other, only worse. I had stayed up until 2:00 a.m. the night before, trying to finish a project I'd put off for far too long. My brilliant plan was to wake up early to polish it off. But of course I slept right through my 7:00 a.m. alarm. When I finally jolted awake and squinted at the clock, it was 8:15 a.m. Oh no! I was supposed to be at work by 8:30 for a big team meeting. I launched out of bed so fast I nearly face-planted on a pile of laundry. My heart was thudding as I scrambled to pull on whatever clothing I could grab. Navy pants, and a black sock on one foot, a brown sock on the other. Close enough, who has time to match? I yanked a shirt over my head. Was it inside out? Who cares? And ran a toothbrush around my mouth in record time. There was no time for a proper breakfast. I managed to grab a banana and a granola bar, figuring I could munch on them during the drive. Keys. Where were my keys? I tore through the apartment like a tornado, cursing under my breath. Come on, I muttered, frantically checking jacket pockets and tossing couch cushions. At last, I found the keys hiding under yesterday's mail. With a sigh of relief, I bolted out the door, only to rush back in immediately because I'd forgotten my laptop for the presentation. Of course I had. Laptop in hand, I locked up for real this time and dashed to my car, already crafting half-baked excuses in my mind for why I was about to be late again. The universe, it seemed, was determined to teach me a lesson that morning. As soon as I pulled out of my driveway, I realized I was nearly running on empty. I'd been procrastinating on getting gas, too. Not now, I groaned, glancing at the fuel gauge hovering just above E. I decided to risk it. I could fuel up after the meeting. Every traffic light on the way turned red at the worst possible moment, as if the city traffic gods knew I was in a hurry. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel, stomach knotted with anxiety. By the time I squealed into the office parking lot, a spot in the far back since I was last to arrive, I was already a solid 15 minutes late for the meeting. So much for sneaking in unnoticed. I rushed into the conference room, trying to be as inconspicuous as a guy bursting through the door 15 minutes late can be. 20 pairs of eyes turned to glare at me as I sidled in. My boss, Mr. Thompson, paused mid-sentence, and slowly lowered his presentation clicker. The silence was painful. "Nice of you to join us, Jack," he said, eyebrows raised. His tone was calm, but I could tell he was annoyed. I felt my face heat up. "Sorry," I stammered, sliding into an empty chair at the table. "Traffic was, crazy this morning." It wasn't a total lie. There had been traffic, plus a minor key-hunting tornado in my apartment. But Mr. Thompson just gave a curt nod and continued with the meeting, clearly unconvinced by my excuse. I tried to shrink into my seat. Marcus, my coworker friend sitting next to me, leaned over and whispered, "That's the third time this month, man." I shot him a helpless look. I knew it was the third time this week, actually, but who's counting? My heart was still hammering from the mad dash, and now I had to present my part of the project under everyone's watchful gaze. When my turn came to speak, I fumbled as I connected my laptop to the projector. Of course, my computer decided this was the perfect moment to run a slow update. As seconds ticked by in awkward silence, I gave a nervous chuckle. "Sorry, it's, just waking up," I joked, tapping my laptop like that would make it hurry. A couple of colleagues smirked, but Mr. Thompson's frown deepened. Finally, the slides came up, and I launched into my spiel, trying to ignore the sweat gathering under my collar. I had finished the last bits of this presentation at 2:00 a.m., and I could hear my own voice stumbling over words. Not my best work. The meeting wrapped up mercifully after what felt like an eternity. As everyone filed out, I caught a stern look from my boss that said, "We need to talk." I swallowed hard. Marcus patted my back sympathetically as he left, whispering, "Good luck." I braced myself and gave Mr. Thompson an apologetic half-smile. "Jack, can I see you in my office?" he said quietly. Oof, the dreaded private chat. I trailed him down the hall, my stomach in knots. Once the office door was closed, he turned to me with a sigh. "This can't keep happening," he said. Not unkindly, but firmly. "You're a talented guy, but I need to be able to rely on you to be on time and prepared. What if today's client meeting had been first thing? We could have been embarrassed in front of them." I know, I replied quickly, guilt twisting in my gut. "I'm really sorry. I just had a rough morning. I was up late working on the deck and—" He held up a hand to stop me. "I appreciate that you got the work done, but you have to manage your time better. This is the third time this week I've had to start a meeting without you." There it was, the real count. I stared at my shoes. "I hate to do this, but if it happens again, I'll have to write you up. Understood?" I nodded vigorously, feeling about 2 inches tall. "Understood. It won't happen again," I mumbled, though I wasn't sure I believed my own words. After a few more apologies from me, and a weary nod from Mr. Thompson, I slunk out of his office. Back at my desk, I dropped into my chair and let out a long, shaky breath. That could have been worse. At least I still had my job. For now. But the day wasn't over, and my troubles with time were far from done. By the time I dragged myself through the rest of the workday, skipping lunch to catch up on everything I'd delayed, I was drained. But I had one more commitment that day, a promise I made to my best friend Ryan. It was his birthday, and a group of us were supposed to meet at 7:00 p.m. for dinner at his favorite burger joint. Ryan joked earlier in the week that he'd tell me 6:30 to make sure I got there by 7:00. I laughed at the time. But now, stuck at the office past 6:45 p.m., finishing up that report I owed, it wasn't so funny. At 7:10 p.m., I was finally in my car, cursing softly as I navigated evening traffic. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "You on your way?" I glanced at the clock. Already late. "Be there in 5." I lied in reply, feeling like a jerk. In reality, I was at least 20 minutes out. I hated that I was doing this to him on his birthday of all days. When I eventually burst into the restaurant around 7:45 p.m., slightly out of breath, I saw a small group of our friends at a long table finishing their meals. They looked up, surprised to see me at last. Ryan was at the head of the table with an empty seat next to him. My seat. He gave me a lopsided smile that was somewhere between happy and disappointed. "Hey, look who finally decided to show," one friend teased, raising her drink. I forced a grin and slid into my seat. I know. I'm the worst. "Happy birthday, man," I said, giving Ryan a quick side hug. He chuckled, but I could tell his heart wasn't fully in it. "You missed the cake," Ryan said, gesturing to a few crumbs left on a plate. "And, most of dinner." Ouch. There was no anger in his voice, just a hint of hurt masked with humor. That felt even worse. I apologized about 10 times in 5 minutes. I could feel the other friends politely avoiding eye contact, probably used to this routine from me. Someone flagged the waiter so I could order something, but I shook my head. I didn't deserve to make them all sit through another round just because I was late. Instead, I picked at the last cold French fries on Ryan's plate while he opened a couple of gifts from the others. I had planned to bring a gift too, something I knew he'd love, but of course, I hadn't gotten around to buying it yet. I promised I'd give him his present later in the week, which only made me feel more like a lousy friend. As we all walked out of the restaurant together, I pulled Ryan aside. I needed to say something more. "Rye, I'm really sorry. I know I keep doing this to you," I said quietly, shame heavy in my chest. He sighed and gave me a tired smile. "Jack, I get it. You're busy, but yeah, it did kinda suck that you weren't there for most of tonight." I was looking forward to hanging out. His words were gentle, but they stung. I had let down one of my best friends on a day that mattered to him. We said our goodbyes, and I promised, for what felt like the 100th time, that I'd make it up to him soon. As I drove home that night, I couldn't escape a sinking feeling. At work, I'd nearly fumbled my job. With my friends, I'd dropped the ball too. I realized my chronic lateness wasn't just a quirk to joke about. It was hurting people I cared about, and it was hurting me. That night, back in my quiet apartment, everything finally hit me. I tossed my keys on the kitchen counter and noticed I still had the squishy remains of the banana and granola bar I'd grabbed that morning, uneaten. Some breakfast, that was. I sighed and sank onto my couch, still in my wrinkled work clothes. My mind replayed the day's events on a loop. The alarm I slept through, Mr. Thompson's disappointed stare, Ryan's half-hearted smile as he said, "You missed the cake." I felt a prickling in my eyes and realized I was on the verge of tears. I wasn't just upset about one rough day. I was upset with myself. How had I let it get this bad? I'd always joked about being chronically late, but the truth was, it had been hurting my career, my relationships, and even my self-esteem for years. I remembered countless other times I'd sworn I'd change. New Year's resolutions scribbled in a notebook. This year I'll finally get organized. Sunday night, promises to start fresh on Monday. Each time I failed to follow through. Sitting there in the dim living room, I spotted a dusty book on my shelf. Time Management for the Busy and the Easily Distracted. I had bought it a year ago, thinking it held the magic cure for my habits, but I'd never read more than the first chapter. Typical, right? I walked over, pulled it out, and thumbed through the pages idly. One line caught my eye. "If you don't control your time, it will control you." I closed the book and took a deep breath. I knew no book or quick trick was going to save me unless I truly wanted to change, and right then I wanted it more than ever. I was tired of the adrenaline-fueled mornings, the apologies, the guilt, tired of letting people down, tired of letting myself down. That was the last straw. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. A real one this time. I had to turn things around. I wasn't sure exactly how yet. Just that I needed to start tomorrow. No more flimsy excuses. Tomorrow would be different. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., earlier than usual. And this time, I did something radical. I actually got out of bed when it rang. No snooze button, no 5 more minutes. I had set 3 alarms at 15-minute intervals to be safe, and placed my phone clear across the room so I'd have to get up to turn it off. I won't lie. It was tempting to crawl back under the covers, but I kept remembering that awful feeling from the night before. I don't want to feel that way again. That thought pushed me forward. I hopped in the shower, feeling groggy but oddly proud of myself for starting the day on time. I even had a few extra minutes to make real breakfast. Scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy, but way better than yesterday's banana that never got eaten. As I buttered my toast, I jotted down a quick plan for the day on a sticky note. Tackle the top priority tasks at work. Finish that report for Mr. Thompson. Call Ryan during lunch to apologize again and set up a make-up hangout. Get gas on the way home so I wouldn't be driving on fumes tomorrow. It felt almost absurd writing out get gas, something normal people manage without a reminder, but I knew I needed these little prompts. Driving to the office, I noticed I wasn't white-knuckling the steering wheel in a frenzied race against time. Traffic was still there, sure, but I had left early enough that it didn't matter. When I pulled into the parking lot, I glanced at the clock on my dashboard. 8:50 a.m. I was actually 10 minutes early. Early! I couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was a small victory, but it felt huge to me. I walked into the building with a spring in my step and a coffee I actually had time to pick up on the way. As I strolled in, I spotted Marcus in the hallway on his way to the morning staff meeting. His eyes widened in mock shock. "Jack, you're early?" he exclaimed, feigning like he might faint. I gave him a playful shove on the shoulder and grinned. "Don't get used to it," I joked, then quickly added, "Actually, maybe do get used to it." Inside, Mr. Thompson gave me a brief nod when he saw me already seated in the conference room before the meeting started. I think I even caught the hint of a pleased smile. I felt a swell of pride. It was just one morning, but I had proven to myself I could do it. Over the next few days, I stuck to my new game plan, one small step at a time. It wasn't like I transformed overnight into some ultra-organized productivity machine. Far from it. But each day, I tried to make one good decision, then another, and they began to add up. I continued waking up with my alarm, sometimes after one snooze, I'll admit, but no more marathon snooze fests. I started making a habit of spending a few minutes each evening planning out the following day. I'd jot down my top 3 tasks for tomorrow, set out my work clothes so I wouldn't lose precious minutes in the morning hunting for a matching sock, and ensure my car keys were always in the same spot by the door. At work, the effects of these little changes didn't go unnoticed. By the end of that week, I had shown up on time to every single meeting. The next week, I even managed to complete a big client report a day before the deadline, instead of frantically finishing it an hour prior. When I emailed it to Mr. Thompson early, he replied within minutes with a rare smiley face emoji and a "Great job, Jack." I practically floated around the office after that. Marcus started joking that I'd been body snatched by an alien who actually knows how to use a clock. It wasn't just the office either. A few days after Ryan's birthday fiasco, I met up with him for a one-on-one coffee, and I made sure I arrived 10 minutes before our agreed time. I'll never forget the look on Ryan's face when he walked into the cafe and saw me already there, waving at him with his favorite latte in hand. "Who are you, and what have you done with Jack?" He laughed as he sat down. We had a great chat, and I gave him the belated birthday gift I'd finally bought. He loved it, and even more, I think he appreciated the effort I was making to be a better friend. Each successful moment, each morning I got up on time, each task I finished when I said I would, each plan I followed through on, it all felt like building a muscle. The more I practiced respecting my own time and other people's time, the stronger that muscle got. I won't pretend it was all easy. There were still evenings I'd catch myself drifting into old habits, like mindlessly scrolling through my phone when I should be prepping for the next day. But now I noticed it and pulled myself back. If I caught myself thinking, "Hey, I can do that later," a little voice in my head, sounding oddly like my mom, would chime in, "Do it now, not later." Slowly but surely, I was rewiring my routines. By taking it one step at a time, I was starting to see real changes. My days began to feel a bit more manageable, even enjoyable. I actually had moments where I could relax because I wasn't always running behind. Imagine that. Things were going well, but I'd be lying if I said it was all smooth sailing from there. A few weeks into my new routine, I hit a snag. One Sunday night, after an especially productive week, I decided I'd earned a break and stayed up way too late binge-watching a show. Old habits creeping back. I neglected my usual prep for Monday. No to-do list, no clothes laid out. I even forgot to plug in my phone. The next morning, I opened my eyes and immediately knew something was wrong. The sun in my window was way higher than it should have been. I fumbled for my phone and found it dead, silently sitting there instead of blaring my 6:30 a.m. alarm. My heart dropped into my stomach. I glanced at the wall clock. 7:50 a.m. I had overslept. For a moment, panic washed over me. Déjà vu from the bad old days. Part of me wanted to scream into my pillow, but instead of spiraling, I sprang out of bed and moved with purpose. Sure, I'd screwed up. But maybe, just maybe, I could minimize the damage. Thanks to the routines I'd built, muscle memory kicked in. I threw on clothes in seconds. They didn't perfectly match, but oh well, skipped the shower and grabbed an energy bar on my way out. I hit a bit of traffic and ended up rushing through the office doors at 9:10 a.m., about 10 minutes late. I was out of breath and bracing for the worst as I headed to my desk. To my surprise, no one seemed to pounce on my late arrival. In fact, the office was running calmly as usual. A meeting had just started, one I wasn't required in, so thankfully I hadn't kept anyone waiting this time. Still, I felt awful. I had broken my streak, and more importantly, I felt that old chaos nibbling at the edges again. I took a moment to collect myself. I went straight to Mr. Thompson's office, poked my head in, and sincerely apologized for arriving behind schedule. He looked up, a bit surprised. "I noticed, but you've been doing great lately, Jack. I figured something must have happened. Everything okay?" His response was understanding, a sharp contrast to the disappointed tone I would get before. I nodded and assured him it wouldn't become a habit. He smiled and told me, "All right, I trust you. Get caught up and have a good day." As I returned to my desk, I realized how different this late morning felt compared to those in the past. Yes, I was frustrated with myself, but I didn't feel hopeless like I used to. One slip-up didn't erase all my progress. Instead of giving up on the day, I doubled down on my efforts. I quickly scribbled a plan for the rest of my day, prioritized what needed doing, and got to work making sure a late start didn't turn into a lost day. By the afternoon, I was back in a groove, tasks getting checked off, crisis averted. That hiccup proved two things to me. First, I'm only human, and old habits can sneak back if I'm not careful. And second, I really had changed my mindset. Because even when I stumbled, I didn't let it derail me. I was learning to pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep going. A couple of months later, the difference in my life was night and day. I was still the same person. Still Jack. Still a bit goofy and imperfect. But I had truly turned a corner with how I managed my time. The ultimate test came on a Tuesday morning when we had a huge client presentation scheduled for 8:00 a.m. sharp. In the past, an early meeting like that would have terrified me and likely resulted in me skidding into the office at 8:05 with excuses flying. But that morning, I was prepared. I woke up extra early, without a single snooze, I had my outfit ironed and ready the night before, and the presentation files double-checked and saved in 3 different places. A bit overkill maybe, but I wasn't taking any chances. I even arrived at the office a full half-hour early. The conference room was empty and quiet as I set up the projector and laid out copies of our proposal for each attendee. At 7:55 a.m., Mr. Thompson and the rest of my team walked in along with the clients, and there I was, fully ready, greeting everyone with a smile and hot coffee I'd picked up for the team. The presentation went off without a hitch. I spoke clearly and confidently, well rehearsed instead of winging it last minute. The clients were impressed, and Mr. Thompson gave me a nod of approval that said it all. After the meeting, as the clients were shaking hands and leaving, my boss pulled me aside. "Fantastic job today," he said warmly. "You were on top of everything." I beamed, remembering a time not long ago when he questioned if he could rely on me at all. Walking back to my desk, I allowed myself a moment to really feel it, that mix of relief, accomplishment, and pride. This was the same guy who, not too long ago, was literally sprinting into work each morning, chronically late and frazzled. Now I was leading a successful meeting, actually ahead of schedule. If you had told the old me that I could become this person, I would have chuckled and shaken my head in disbelief. What's more, the calm and confidence I gained at work began spilling into the rest of my life. I found myself making it to the gym a few times a week because I finally made the time. I started enjoying little pockets of the day I never knew existed. Morning coffee at home without rushing out the door, evenings where I could unwind guilt-free because my tasks were done. Friends and family noticed the change too. I wasn't perfect, I doubt I ever will be, but I was dependable in a way I never had been before. And it felt incredibly good. Looking back now, it's almost hard to believe how far I've come. I know it's a bit cliché to say, but learning to manage my time effectively has genuinely changed my life. The funny thing is, the hours and minutes themselves didn't change. I did. I learned that being on time isn't about racing the clock. It's about respecting it, and respecting myself and others in the process. These days, I still use that old Time Management for the Busy and the Easily Distracted book from my shelf, but more as a reminder of how I started turning things around. Every now and then I'll flip through it and find a useful tip, but the real lessons came from living it day by day. I've discovered the joy of a calendar that isn't overbooked, of a to-do list with most of the items checked off. Okay. All might be too much to ask. I've learned to say no sometimes and not feel bad about it, and to say yes to the things that truly matter. Most importantly, I've learned to be patient with myself. Change didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual, sometimes bumpy journey, but every step made a difference. I went from constantly feeling like time was slipping through my fingers to feeling like, hey, I got this. Now, when I catch myself arriving early to an appointment or wrapping up work ahead of a deadline, I smile to myself. It's not just about being punctual. It's about the peace of mind that comes with it. My story isn't some magic transformation. I didn't turn into a completely different person. I still laugh at silly things, still enjoy a good lazy Sunday here and there. The difference is now I choose when to be lazy and when to be busy, rather than chaos choosing for me, and that has made all the difference. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe.